Hey, how's it going, everyone? Before we get started with this next episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast, I want to give a quick shout out to a couple of our sponsors, being the Archives of Falconry. And if you're already a member of the Archives of Falconry, I want to say thanks on their behalf. And if not, I strongly encourage you to join. I know I did, and I've been enjoying some of the membership benefits. Memberships help support the world's leading falconry heritage organization, and some of the benefits include discounted or free rendezvous tickets, discounts at their online store, updates on book auctions, sneak peeks at new exhibits, cool swag, and much, much more. For more information, you can head to falconry.org, and you can also sign up there if you're interested. I also want to say thanks to Seth Roy of North Mountain Goshawks for his continued support. If you are in the market for a new goshawk hunting partner for this upcoming season, he makes really nice game hawks, and hit him up at northmountaingoshawks.com or North Mountain Goshawks on Facebook. You can also email him at ostringer3@gmail.com. If you want to get on the list, it'll be here before we know it. And if you want a North American Finnish or Russian parent rear goshawk especially, don't hesitate. Like I said, he makes great birds, and I'm sure you won't regret it. And I also want to remind everyone that the podcast is now a part of the Extreme Performance Outdoor Network, and if you haven't had a chance to listen to any of the other podcasts in the network, like the Houndsman XP podcast, I highly recommend you do so. There's lots of good stuff in those episodes, and there's lots of great information about hunting with hounds and things like that, so check it out if you haven't already. Okay, now on to the next episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast. Enjoy.
So Phil's bird took this, but it was the duck. It was a steep bank, and had pulled the bird back in the water, and it was going underneath an overpass or not even a pedestrian bridge.
I reach out for the duck, and it just gets too far away, and I go, my face goes under, and I get
so now he's literally swimming.
Nice mouth of Jersey scum water.
Hey, what's up, everyone, and thanks again for joining me for another episode of the Falconry Chronicles podcast. And this episode takes us back to the world of dachshunds, and this pair of brothers has done a lot for the dachshund community, and they're also former apprentices of Teddy Moritz and have a lot of great stories and experiences and input to share with you all. So I'm really happy to be able to bring this episode out to you all, and I think it's actually the first episode that I've recorded, if I remember right, that features a couple brothers, so it's something else new to the podcast here, if I recall correctly. But anyway, I'm going to go ahead and turn things over to this conversation with Paul and Phil Eliya, and I hope you really enjoy it. Here we go. Well, it's been nice getting to know you guys a little bit over dinner and stuff. I do have to start off, though. I want to ask, and go ahead and get this out of the way, what level of midlife crisis does it take to have to feel like you want to go ahead and get like a nice, shiny, white, women's-looking Corvette that, as Casey so eloquently, made sure to point out too, it's not even a manual, but it's an automatic transmission. How hard is it to get bird boxes and dogs in and out of the back of that? So who can comment on that real quick?
I seen him strap his goshawk to the T-tops, the little bar in the middle.
You just wrap like the AstroTurf on the middle bar there.
Yeah, I'm starting something new, John. A Stingray Corvette is going to be the next hawking vehicle. You watch. C3 Corvette.
Well, I've seen Priuses used. I've seen all kinds of different vehicles used. So, I mean, why not,
Listen,
I guess.
There's a lot of pavement where we hawk. So, that's just, you don't need an off-road vehicle very often.
I will take y'all's word for it. I mean, I can totally see where that would be a pretty amazing, car hawking vehicle.
Absolutely. It just rides right in the middle of that T-top and ready to go. I wrap it with good rope in the season, and just perches on there.
That whole car itself is like one big giant hood. It's about the same amount of space. That thing is a good giant hood.
Yeah, I mean, I can see where the after you put the top up, I mean, does it even have a top? Did you even get one with a top?
I got the T-tops. They just never go on.
Okay. Well, I'll take y'all's word for the efficiency of that, I guess. I don't know if that's
It's only slightly cooler than my other two minivans that I have.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Just slightly.
Well, I mean, personally, I've only had about 1.5 to 2 midlifes so far. So maybe by my fourth one, I don't know, maybe I'll be ready to.
When you have your 5th child and you can barely hawk anymore, then yeah, you're gonna go for a midlife crisis.
Yeah, I'm not gonna do that. I'm just gonna go ahead and take the easy way out, I guess, and not worry about that. I'm just gonna stop with the one, I guess, and whatever. I've got to have enough money for the vet. So I mean, if I have another 4 kids or whatever, I'm not going to have enough money for the next level of hawking vehicle. So
yep, I hear you. I get it.
Well, I appreciate y'all being great hosts and great company so far. I've already given Casey some false hope that he's done some good or whatever on this trip so far. But so you guys, have lived around here the majority of your life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, our whole life. Yep.
Yeah. Northern New Jersey has been
most densely populated place in the country.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, per capita.
Is that like a real statistic? Or
Yeah,
you just
that's
make
New
it up?
Jersey's actually more densely populated than Japan. It's a pretty tight place to live. I think there's like 9 million of us here, and then probably about 50 falconers sprinkled amongst those 9 million people.
So you'll have to just keep building up instead of out, like they do in Japan.
I mean, fortunately, there's still some nicer parts of the state. It is a garden state. There's still some farmland and some open areas, but
I mean, this hotel we're sitting in here right now, I mean, we walked behind it. I mean, before it was this hotel was here and right next door and behind that hotel and whatever little parcels of land we could find all up and down this highway. We used to hunt for 20 years ago when we got into the sport, but now it's mostly hotels and other stuff.
Yeah. 20 years, man. It's a decent chunk of change. I talked to all these dudes that have been in this sport, and even some of our mutual, gal friends as well that have been in this sport for such a long time. And man, I can only hope to make it that long. Like I said, I've been in this for still a relatively short amount of time considering, but man, I hope I'm still able to physically do this crap.
we started in, I think, 99 was when we got our license. We both got our permits. Yeah. Fortunately, it's as densely populated it is. There was we happen to have one great falconer in the area that we got to know, Teddy, and so it's there's been a few other there's a number of falconers around like through the years.
When we got into the sport in '99, I mean, our county roughly now has about 1 million people in this county. So Teddy was the only practicing falconer in this county when we met her. So it was literally like 1 in a million chance, and she actually was in the falconer in this town that we're in right now.
Actually, and Frank Weber was here, but he hadn't been had a bird at the time.
Yeah,
he was
for a while.
Maybe close to his 80s at the time. Maybe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, cool. I mean, I was excited to do this episode. I don't know why now that I've met you all, but anyway, I was excited to do this episode initially because I don't believe. I mean, I recently just kind of had another first milestone, which was like a father-daughter, tandem or whatever. But I don't really know. I don't think we've had any brothers on the podcast yet. I mean, I'd have to think about it for a minute, but I don't know if we've had any brother tandems on the podcast yet. So this was kind of cool, getting a chance to talk to two guys that obviously grew up together, and not only, of course, in the same household, but in the sport as well. So
like my Phil was always, I think he was the catalyst. I mean, I was always interested in falconry, and
But he was interested in it first.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was when I was a teenager. Before the internet, I would after school you go to the library and just peruse through random books, and I looked up falconry and I think Philip Glazier's book and a couple other British books, took them out, read them, flipped through them, put them back, and then I think a couple years later, Phil found an interest in it.
I went to a Renaissance festival not too far from here, and saw
Ray Penna was
Ray Penna, was a falconer and from New York, and he did a demonstration at a local Renaissance festival. And my brother, I remember it clear as day, my brother turned to me and said, you could do that in New Jersey. And I said, I'm doing that, just like that. And, I was only, I believe 17 at the time, and I was just graduated high school, I believe. So I went through college and did all that before I finally got my license and stuff. But I would just
He started
read
bringing books home, and I had already taken those out a few years ago.
Yeah, I would take
like,
out
I remember
books
that
from the
book. I
local
remember looking at that
library,
book.
no internet.
You'd have to get the book from another library, get transferred over. Say, I got this other book.
And I'd open the back, and they'd still see, my brother's name in the back, when he took it out, a couple of years ago. So it was back when information was scarce.
Cool.
I was always more pragmatic, and we didn't have time to do it. We were both competing, wrestling through college and other things, and I was like, it didn't seem feasible. Phil was like, we can do it. Or after, as soon as we finished graduating, he went to contacted the state, and I think you went to the
took my
Falconry
test,
meet, right?
Yeah.
You went to,
I went to the picnic
first.
Yeah, and tried to, get it. And then, when I was still in college, and then when I finally graduated college, passed my test, and then
I was always tagging along.
And then once I passed my test, once he realized that there was no stopping it and he was going to do it, he's like, all right, I'm doing it too.
Yeah. So I asked Teddy to sponsor me as well.
And I'm sure, much to her chagrin, she had to take both of you on at the same time, right?
Yeah. She's like, all right. We met her. We met at the same day, same time. Like I said, only practicing falcon in this county, 1 in a million, pretty much.
And we were her first.
And we were the only person she's ever sponsored up until that point. So since she's been doing it since the 60s, this is 99. She knew. I think she said later on that she could just see that we weren't going to stop. We weren't gonna we weren't gonna let her get away with it,
Yeah. She's like, man, I wish I could have moved to Delaware quicker.
Another funny side story is that she's 10 minutes away from us, but her and her husband graduated from the same college that I graduated from. So that was another. I had just graduated college from her alma mater. It was another weird, twisted
West Virginia
University. So.
Yeah, well, well, you never know exactly what's going to be, I guess, that relatable, thing, to at least spur the conversation on to get familiar with someone and make that initial.
We went up to the Falconry meet, the picnic that summer, and first person that came up and introduced herself to us was Teddy, and
I think we caught her at a good time in her life too, as far as I think her kids were getting older. And she was very active in her hawking. But I think if we talked to her 10 years ago, she might not have had time to take us on as apprentices. So
bother with us.
Yeah. I mean, even still, she was, great guidance. We could talk, all about the things she's, did for us and helped us and whatnot. But she was very active in her own falconry. So, a lot of her time was spent on the phone with us, daily calls, consulting. But
as every good sponsor does.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well,
what kind of things did you all have to do to kind of earn your apprenticeship with her then? I mean, what were all the hoops that you guys had to jump through for that?
Well, I think the interesting thing about Teddy is, she, I don't want to say you had to prove yourself, but you kind of had to prove yourself. She's not going to hold your hand and walk you through step by step.
If we didn't do everything that we needed to do, it just wouldn't get done.
Yeah,
and
she's not going to say,
you're going to fail. You're going to fail. You're not going to do it. You're not taking your test. You didn't get your muse built. You didn't. She's not there checking on us.
It's a different generation, that she grew up in, and
sure,
she grew up under.
You want to do it, you do it. And then we would ask her, consult with her, but she was always of encouraging us to just keep going ahead and consult other people, consult with, other falconers, learn. And then we just come back to her and say, this is what we think we're going to do. And she'd be like, okay, good. That makes sense. And I do this and that, and come check out her muse, check out her facilities, ask her a million questions.
She would let us fail. That kind of thing, and just offer guidance when we asked. But we were very, I always say that we got double the experience, because instead of starting with a red tail or a kestrel, we got a red tail and a kestrel, and we, and we did everything double. So, we got double the falconry experience that, other people would not probably get.
Yeah. We were still living at the same house.
We're still living together, young and 20, single, and
Built the
and
muse
just
together, and
hawking every day.
he got he had his red tail. I trained with him, helped him train his bird, and then
Trapped a kestrel.
and then he trapped the kestrel, and then I trained the kestrel, flew the kestrel.
So everything was double speed. It was
So you both were learning simultaneously with each other's birds and basically each other's mistakes as well.
Exactly.
And,
lots of mistakes.
But also the thing, we also like, even to this day, we can fill in for each other, right? I mean, it's not everybody has 24/7 to spend with a bird, but like if Phil's going away for the weekend, I could still hawk his bird. Like there was I was hawking the red tail and hawking the kestrel. Right. And it's vice versa. So it was literally, all right, I'm going to be home from work. Make sure the bird's on weight, or I'm going away. Can you,
And then when he moved out, finally got married and moved out, he moved next door. So it was,
and then took a couple more years, and I put a mew on my side, which happened to be Casey's old mew when he moved out of his childhood home. He had a mew floating around, and we pulled it over and moved to my yard. I had to start separating some stuff over there from Phil, but it's about 50 feet away from each other. So it's not a problem if, and that's, to this day, like, if one of us goes away, we have somebody to take care of the birds, or if the bird's on weight and I'm not going to get home from work to hawk it, Phil, can you go fly the bird? So for many years it was, that red tail or whatever bird we had was being flown by both of us at the same time. It was getting flown a lot. We had one dog for a while. The second year we got a dog from Teddy. And that poor dog, man, we wore his legs off because there was one dog being used for 2 falconers.
Well, I'm sure the dog enjoyed the hell out of it, though.
It's a great dog. Yeah. And that's finally when Teddy would actually go out hawking with us. The whole first year, I don't think she didn't go hawking with us at all. We got a dog, and then all of a sudden now she wants to see the dog go. So we were invited out to her field. Yeah, she's all right. I'm going to take these guys. Rabbits are a commodity here, right? And she's like, I'll take it to this field where it's, we'll catch some squirrels. I know these guys are catching squirrels. I'm not going to waste my rabbits on these guys. So she take us to the field. I think we caught 2 rabbits in 30 minutes instead of no squirrels. But that was with her dog, and she's like, all right, I guess things are going well between, what was going on.
See you next year.
Yeah. No, basically. From then on, once the dog was in the loop, we enjoyed many, many days in the field together.
Well, that's great stuff. Yeah, I figured you guys would have a little bit different of a perspective as far as an apprenticeship and just introductory aspect to your falconry careers, because you all were practicing at the same time and doing all this stuff at the same time. So, I don't know how many people get that. Yeah.
We bounced stuff off each other with Teddy. Rick DeVore was in North Jersey at the time before he moved to Texas, and we hawked a lot with him and Doug Moore at the time. Early stuff that they were just a couple years into falconry ahead of us, but actively hawking a red-tailed hawk. And so Teddy's like, go out with them, right? Go out. She encouraged us to go out with as many falconers to get experience, to understand things.
She was very big on pushing and learning from other, like just see what's out there and explore different things and see what's going on. And that was a big, I think we took that with us. Like we did that a lot.
Yes.
And, we met a lot of people because of that. And to this day, some people are still our friends from those early years.
She's not a sponsor where she was like, you got to do things my way. Or it's more like this is what I do and this is what works.
It was more the opposite. If you ever wanted information from Teddy, it was, you had to ask her for it. She wasn't
pushing it on you.
She wasn't pushing on it. Even the dog, like, I know it sounds like, oh, we had to have the dog, but it wasn't like that. It was like, I saw that dog and of course, as you can imagine, now it sounds funny, but at the time, not being a hunter and not knowing anything about dogs, never having a dog in my life, seeing that little dog and thinking that thing can hunt was, a little miniature long-haired dachshund was, that was mind-blowing to me. Like, what do you mean? Like, that's a little lap dog. What do you mean that thing can hunt? And so I was just blown away by that and just... I couldn't wait to get a dog.
There weren't a whole lot of people.
But it wasn't her pushing it. It was just...
No, she wasn't. She didn't say, when are you going to get a dog?
No.
Yeah. She never really said. We just said, we want a dog.
The first bird we saw fly was ours. The first dog we saw run was ours. The first,
First rabbit we
first
caught in the
bird we
field
trapped was
yeah.
ours that we saw. We didn't see any,
We didn't
it's-
go out
that's
with
never going to
falconers before
happen
we got
again
them.
with the modern age, with internet and the accessibility that it is now. It's not going to ever happen again. We didn't see any of this. We didn't see a bird come to the fist. We could only dream about it from the books we read and just think about it over and over for years and years and just,
Yeah, and looking back now, how do you think about how we knew when we were ready to let that bird go? But
Right.
we knew.
Yeah.
It did what we expected to, and
Yeah.
we
And
just-
we did, and we took a chance, and we got lucky.
Yeah.
But it's not the same. It's just that those times are over.
Yeah, and I think that especially like you mentioned in the modern era, it's really not like having more of a hands-off sponsor type of relationship these days, especially, really is not something that many people, I think, would encourage by any stretch. But
No, I don't do it with I have an apprentice now, and I some of those things I encourage as well, and but I wouldn't expect her to cut the bird loose without necessarily me being there, or even taking her hunting, or I don't mind. I feel like there's a lot of value in it. I don't think everybody can do it the way we did it.
I mean, yeah, it's
or
just
it's not a
times have
requirement
changed,
either,
yeah.
yeah.
I mean, Casey was my first, apprentice, and I mean, I'm still holding his hand to this day.
yeah, obviously.
No, he was.
You're doing such a
he's
swell
of the
job.
same. He was of the same.
I mean, he's
ilk. He was a go-getter.
he was easy. He was a natural. It was easy to, he was an easy apprentice for sure. But I mean, but that's a rare thing. Nowadays, I think people want.
Well, there's a lot of exposure you want to risk.
Yeah, people want a lot more help than they really need.
Yeah. Well, everybody's afraid of messing it up.
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, and I think that a big degree of a lot of the pressure that modern falconers, especially the ones getting into it, are susceptible to is a lot of self-imposed pressure because of what you were talking about, like the social media type stuff. And
Correct.
And I mean, it can be a great tool and resource, but there's a lot of
Correct.
room for people to pick up outside influence or impressions, and that worry is there about, I'm going to look like a, whatever.
An
and
impression stick,
yeah.
and it's first impressions in a community that's a very tight-knit community. Your reputation carries a long way. I mean, but any newcomer to the sport, especially if you're a go-getter and you're pushing limits, there's always people are going to have. There's naysayers and criticisms, and we dealt with that. I know there's plenty.
Absolutely.
We'd hear it from the grapevine. Hey, you guys are.
It was the
hawking
same
this and-
way, but
yeah.
it wasn't on social media. It was just hearsay and through people's, in the old, just gossip.
But you have to
the
earn your-
old
you have
thing
to-
of gossip. We used to hear the same thing, and but what's the old saying? You learn from your mistakes, type of thing.
Sure.
We made a lot of mistakes, maybe more than Paul probably, but that's
did
also.
plenty.
Learning, that's also a way to learn a lot, and so I'm not ashamed to admit that, because that's how I learned a lot. I made a lot of mistakes and I learned a lot from it, and it made me a better falconer.
Yeah, well, and because nobody learns from. I mean, this has been said many, many times,
Right,
but I mean,
exactly.
nobody learns from their success.
Exactly.
Yeah, I mean, and unfortunately, it's a common theme that you hear over and over again with a lot of older generation falconers that didn't have any resources whatsoever aside from a random book that they were able to find and stuff. Basically is the only way that they were able to learn. And unfortunately, in a lot of relationships nowadays, I think that there's still a lot of that to this day with a lot of people that don't have other falconers that are within X amount of hours of them, and you still see some of the paper sponsor type relationships and things like that. And I mean, people got to do what they got to do, but at the same time, it's still. I think everybody could agree, though, that the best way to go about it is to actually have that in-person, resource that's there to help guide you. Yeah.
And on the flip side of that argument is the too much information. The too many inputs from other people, the too many, well, what do I do now? The too many books that do, this guy says this guy says that, and if I ever, which I don't sponsor too often, but if I ever sponsor somebody, I'm like I tell them what Teddy told me, talk to everybody you want, but just do it my way for now. And then when you're done, do it whatever way you want. But during that time, talk to people. We'll talk about it. Any other ways you want to do it, we'll talk about it. But I'm just going to teach you what I know. And then when you're done with me, do whatever you want.
Yeah.
And that's it. Not because I don't think other people are right. It's just that this is what I know. And this is the way I'm teaching.
You can't coach somebody else's technique.
I don't want to coach somebody else's technique type of thing, know. So there's also that issue of having too much information right now, I feel like sometimes.
Yeah, and now you have like a whole world at your fingertips, basically, of people that are flying all these different species, and then of course there's also people that are flying species in areas that aren't like yours, that they may or may not be having success with it. You never really know, whatever. But like, there's a whole realm now of a whole world of temptation to try things that maybe you shouldn't and stuff also. And like you said, you won't ever really truly know if you can do something or if you can't until you try it and then also fail or whatever.
Yeah.
But
I'm a big proponent in not reinventing the wheel until you know how to build the wheel. Like learn how to build the wheel and then you can reinvent it, until that point, and
exactly.
Learn how to do it one way first, and then
if you're new to an endeavor and then you're trying to come at it with a completely unorthodox method, it doesn't bode well. Learn what others have put forth before you, and then go from there and evolve.
Yeah, the reinventing the wheel thing, it doesn't really usually work out very well.
Well, and the stakes are so high with falconry, right?
Yeah,
it doesn't take much for before you have a dead hawk or falcon by something careless or something like along those lines. Sure. Well, and I mean throughout the years, then over these last 2 decades that you all have been practicing, how many people have you guys come along? We won't count Casey because of the obvious reasons, but how many good apprentices have you had throughout the years, and how much wisdom have you all had to? Do you guys kind of still take somewhat of a tag team approach, or do you guys? Yeah, I think they usually get the both of us.
Mm-hmm.
So but
we've only had 4 between the two of us in 24 years.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Of falconry, so it's not that many.
And they've all been successful falconers.
They've all been produced and caught, and at least caught game, in the eyes of what we consider successful at catching game with their birds.
Yeah.
And they've all done that.
Yeah.
And a good amount of game, and I want to put a number on it, but they've all successfully, under our apprenticeships, have caught multiple heads of game.
Yeah. Well, from day one with Teddy, it's all about setting the expectation. It was the biggest thing for us. Is when I first got into falconry, I thought, you catch 1 rabbit, it was great, and then I heard so and so caught 40 rabbits last year. I'm like, wow, Teddy, I didn't know that. She's like, yeah, well, that's all right for he's working full time, so 40's all right. And I'm like, what? But she's used to 100 plus a year, and in this our area, it's like there's not a lot of rabbits, so it's work, right? So, but the expectation that every time you go out, you're expecting to catch something, right? When I was coming in as apprentice, it was like, I'm going to fly my bird and we're going to try to chase some stuff and maybe we'll catch something. That's kind of what I got from just reading books, right? But in reality, it was.
I remember calling her and be like, Teddy, my bird came to my fist. Can you believe that? That was exciting news. It came across the yard. She's like, yeah, okay, great.
Yeah, but the expectation is every time you take the bird, every time I take my bird out, I'm expecting to catch game. So it kind of flipped a switch in my head. It's like, okay, you're not out here for fun. There's a purpose to this, and the purpose is being successful by catching something. Catching game. So that was a guiding principle all through our falconry going forward. Is right. It's fun in games, but the purpose is for them to catch.
Well, and that's kind of another slippery slope too, because every person's version or viewpoint of what's successful and what's not is kind of different from person to person also. And yeah, some people
get excited about a handful here or whatever.
Well, I mean, everybody has different challenges that they're going to deal with, and the measure of success is one thing, but the intent is to catch something. If you're flying a bird purposely, repeatedly, and it's not just a training session where you have no real intention of actually catching game, I think that's not falconry. That's not the right way to do falconry, right? The purpose is to pursue and try to catch game, right?
Sure.
So
yeah.
I'm not saying you have to put in, full bags every time you're out there. We don't do that, but we want to make sure that we go out there. Every time I go out and let my dogs out and go fly my bird, I expect to catch something. Mm-hmm. I don't always catch something, but that's the expectation.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's good to know what that standard or what that bar was for you guys then.
Yeah, and she sets a high bar because it was like, we're literally tag teaming with the birds. Like he'd fly the red tail, then I'd fly, and then he'd fly. We would have as much flying time as we can, just trying to keep up with head counts with her for a while. And you may do that for
just
one
for
season.
Fun. I mean, not
serious.
Yeah,
just to say, for a while, and then
of course, it was two of us against her, but that didn't seem to.
Yeah, but it's still the same bird. That was still
fair in our
same
eyes.
Bird.
Yeah. For
same
us,
bird.
it was still fair to us in our case.
Yeah.
So we hung in there for like one season, and then for the last 19, she blows us away.
Yeah.
Well,
actually, was it 24 seasons now? 23 seasons. Yeah.
Well, yeah, I can see. Especially someone like her, you gotta keep you in your places.
Yeah,
gotta keep you humble.
Yeah, she did. She definitely stepped it up a little bit, whether she will admit it or not. She definitely picked up the numbers a little bit.
Well, because once we had the dog, it was a game changer, right? That was the big deal, right? So we had the dog, and we were.
And arguably, and I've asked her this, and I don't know if it was just that dog was the right place at the right time. I think it was all, a lot of things, the stars aligned, and I've asked her about it. I think it was arguably one of the best dogs she's ever produced in the right situation at the right time to two people hunting every other day, every day, pretty much for,
Yeah.
And so it was, of course I'm biased, but that dog was just an amazing dog. But, like I said, I think it was just the right thing at the right time, a great dog in the right situation, and, started by itself and just,
he didn't have a litter mate. He was being, run solo. So we got to focus on him. And he really developed.
I mean, he would run. He would run hunted rabbits. He would run. He would treat squirrels, run squirrels. Track squirrels, trace pheasant. We'd shoot guns. We'd gun hunt pheasant over him, that kind of thing. So I mean, he was just a all around amazing dog.
Well, sounds like it. And I guess this is a good time then just to stay on this train of thought. And I mean, I want to. Ask you guys, I mean, as far as this area goes and other circumstances aside, I mean, what is it about this breed? Because that's the kind of the theme of this series is kind of, to really kind of dig into a little bit what makes dachshunds so appealing to so many falconers. And I mean, for you guys as a continued thing, I mean, have you guys ever considered running any other breed, or is it still something that you're just always going to be, kind of?
So I'm not necessarily like I'm not married to the breed any per se, but we run the dachshunds because they're the best dog for what we do and where we hawk and the type of hawking we do. That's it. I mean, I personally, I would love a bigger dog. I'd love to have, I'd love to be able to run a bird dog on some upland game and stuff. We just don't have it here, and that's so. And beagles have great nose. I mean, there's a million other dogs that are great in their situation, but for what we do, the type of hawking we do, there's not a better dog, right? So,
So I mean, I may have a little bit more, like amicable feelings to the breed than Paul does, but I mean, like he said, it's for our situation. I can't. Of course, we've contemplated other breeds and we've thought about it and stuff like that. But simply put, there's just no other better dog for our situation, for the size of the cover that we hunt, for the doing holes and maybe not doing holes, for the fact that, people see you with a dachshund and they're not really too concerned, to be quite honest.
You couldn't run beagles. You couldn't run beagles around here. They're way too vocal.
And they I know people don't think they do, but they do listen. You know, if you get the right one, they do listen to you. They have a good, verbal command. And for what we do, we can't find a better situation. Anything else would range too far, too big. Our spots are very, very small. That we're hunting. Maybe a half-acre lot sometimes. To a couple-acre lot. So we don't have many big. And
every
big
rabbit's
lots.
precious. If it goes underneath somebody's shed, we want to get it out.
Yeah, we have to stick with it, and it goes in a shed in a hole or something like that. So there's really not a better dog for what we do. It just isn't for our situation.
Well, go ahead.
No, I was going to say there weren't a whole lot of people. I think Teddy had a dachshund.
Yeah, I think
there was one or two other female falconers.
now everybody in Jersey has dachshunds.
Not everybody, but
pretty much.
They're used a lot, but they weren't.
That's because of Teddy. It wasn't. That wasn't the case. When she was.
I think Bill Bowler. I think up in Michigan had him at the time when we.
I'm saying 90s. New Jersey. I don't know.
No, New Jersey. Yeah, there wasn't.
But now, you could
many.
call it the New Jersey Falconry and Dachshund Club. It's so many people have them
because it works.
Because it works,
you know what? It's again, you see success, you can emulate it, and again, why, and then hunting without a dog, especially around here, is very hard. I think parts of South Jersey you can definitely get away. There's good rabbit numbers. You don't need to have a dog.
We used to have better rabbit numbers when we started, but now it's like, if we get a slip an hour, we're that's about average.
Yeah.
That's pretty low average.
It is.
Yeah,
it is.
Your bird's got to be good because you got to take advantage of that. It's there's small spots and a lot of spots. If I get flush one rabbit, I'm good. I'll pack up and move to the next.
Even the spots that we have had historically had more numbers. I think we don't know for sure, but we think there's a coyote fox type issue going on. There's just less and less numbers of rabbits.
Yeah, even the decent spots that were.
I see more fox than I see rabbit when I hawk.
Yeah, it's quite a few fox, but you can drive an hour and 2 hours, an hour and a half, and get into some good fields still.
Well, there you go. You just need to get you a bigger, different type of hound to start hunting fox with.
Yeah. Well, Teddy's shown us how she can do that.
Couple
with
of
the
them I've seen
dachshunds.
are very hairless, mangy. Oh, not pretty things.
But all that whole going to that working working groundhogs and raccoon and things with these dachshunds. That was Teddy opened us up to a whole nother world of hunting. We didn't grow up in a household around, people that hunted dogs or worked terriers or whatnot. And she did terriers, and then she was running dachshunds. So we learned how to.
Yeah, she still to this day hunts year round.
Yeah, and so it's like. It was interesting just to be able to now
sight hounds. We did coursing a little bit with her.
Yeah, she had her lurcher that we'd go out with, and that was fun. And
some whippets, her friends would go at the whippets, and the dachshunds would start them, and the whippets would finish it in the lurcher.
Yeah, it was. She opened us up to a lot of different things that we'd never been exposed to otherwise.
Yeah. So basically, it's more of a practicality thing, more so than just love of like a particular fondness or love of the breed.
Me personally, yeah. I wouldn't have a dachshund if I wasn't using it for falconry.
I kind of personally like them, even though you wouldn't see it if you saw it nowadays because I have 2 males in the house. But I kind of like.
Enjoy them as a breed.
I would have one. I would go back to one dachshund.
Mm. If you weren't using it for falconry, you would have one as a pet. You saying?
Well, I don't know about that.
Not me. I would not have one as a pet just for if I wasn't hawking with it. It wasn't using it for falconry. It's just, it's a practice.
I don't know if I'd have any. I don't know if I'd have any dog that I wasn't.
I love that. I love the way that the value that they bring to us, the type of hunting they are. I love their personality for hunting, but they have a specific job and they're good at it, and that's what I really love about them the most. Mm. Not that they're cute, long, short, and live forever, have bad teeth and nasty attitudes, and piss all over the house.
They're wonderful companions. They're extremely loyal. They're smart, and
we're not people that took a fondness for dachshunds and adapted them to our hunting lifestyle. We strictly got them because they're good for the type of falconry we do. And fortunately, there was somebody that paved the way, went through different breeds, tried different dogs out, and settled in on the dachshund, and then started working a line that was very, successful, and so we got a good dog right off the bat. I mean, at the time, she said, I mean, there was still, I mean, she had tried different breedings. Even she was breeding to different show lines and other pet lines at times. She had done wire hairs for a while. I think there were still some wire hairs around at the time that she was using, but she eventually moved off from them because of inconsistency with the coat. So, and then I think she started with the long-haired line that she has now from, I forgot his last name, Chuck out in Ohio, was a field trialer who had the great line of these long-haired miniature dachshunds, and she saw that dog work and started breeding from that line, and I guess 25, 30 years later, it's grown up quite a bit, and they've improved. The dachshunds that you see now, from falconry lines, they're all very good dogs. I mean, when we first got into it, half the dachshunds weren't that great. I mean, that's like,
yeah. I mean, yeah. There's so many good breeders out there now, and so many good, lines out there. And I mean, listen,
that's.
Just because she's our sponsor, she's not here holding a gun to her head. I mean, it's a lot because of Teddy.
Yeah.
I mean, she created a lot of good blood, and now when I first started the sport, I would be like, no to those breeders. But now I would be like, you can't lose almost. You almost can't lose nowadays because there's so many. I mean, nothing's 100% guarantee, of course, but you almost can't lose.
But she encouraged
you got them from now.
She encouraged the breeding.
She never was selective about her dogs. She was never selective about her breeding. She was never selective about keeping her prodigy to herself. She was always encouraging us to spread the wealth, spread the knowledge, spread the dogs, spread the genetics everywhere. She never put a restriction on anything. She was always encouraging every breeding that we did to get it out there. Get more people with dachshunds, the better. She was always pushing that.
Yeah, you have better. Yeah, so you have better genetics, a better line, and improved.
Where we were like very stingy on who we bred to. She was just like, continue to move the breed, continue to move the line forward.
Yeah. Right. Well, that was going to be my next question. I mean, you guys have done some breeding yourselves, right?
Plenty. I mean,
yeah.
I couldn't count how many litters we've done, but yeah.
So I want to ask you a couple questions then, kind of along those lines. I mean, a couple questions I've been asking people that just from their personal experience in having dachshunds, but also from a breeder's perspective too. When, in your mind, is the best time to send a pup to its new home perspective? Like, when's the best time to go ahead and take a pup home? And also, have you guys done anything in the past to try and mitigate or kind of minimize just the amount of mess that they can leave in a house at times?
Okay.
Because, that's an ongoing question,
I'll do how many weeks?
Okay, so you share that.
So for me, I don't like to get rid of a puppy before 10 weeks, 10 to 12 weeks.
Yeah.
Because a number of reasons. One, it's the puppies I've seen taken earlier don't seem to have a good basis. I don't know how to say it. Personality, socialization, disposition, everything like that. They're not like even those, like, it sounds like 8 to 10 weeks is not a big difference, but it does. It's just in the conformation of the dog and everything, just how it moves and acts and everything seems to be a big difference. I would like to keep it for 12 weeks if I had to. Problem with that is they're very annoying and it's a lot more work on the breeder. And I get it. But I would like to keep it for 10 to 12 weeks if I had to.
Yeah. And from early on, I mean, the way I keep my dogs is that you crate train, right? So we crate train, and I don't give them free range at the house ever, really. So it's really just I have like an X pen in the basement where they can stay in, and people maybe a cordoned off room or whatnot, but they go from being fed, being fed or watered, right? They have food and water all the time, but being fed, go outside, pee and poop, come back in. At that point, they'll get free range in the house to go play, hang out. And then when we're done and they're not being watched or they're not in front of you, then they go back into their big crate or X-pen area, right? And so they're never just given the free range of the house where they can soil the area. And so if the kids want to play with them or we want to let them, hang out with us on the couch, they go from the pen right outside, let them pee and poop before they come back inside. And that's a pretty good way to just kind of make sure that they don't ever, tearing up your garbage. And we had our early times, we tried with just letting them free range of the house. And, you're always fighting a mess and whatnot. And if they get pissed off at you, they might go jump on your bed and pee all over it or something like that. So.
I mean, they're notorious for not being able to be house trained, but they can very well be house trained.
Yeah, some people do great with it, but
I think
don't
crate training is, like he said, is a huge key. But I think another factor is having one dog. Having one dog in the house makes it a lot easier. If you have two dogs in the house, it makes it a little more challenging, especially if you have a dog and a bitch in the house. And we don't fix our dogs because we're breeding, and you have that pack mentality. Having a male and a bitch in the house makes it a big, extremely, almost impossible challenge. But just having the dog in the house would be, it was possible.
Yeah.
He was like, my first dog was very, not 100%, but it was very good in the house and very, trained to go outside and then very, very, few mistakes. But with, multiple dogs that aren't fixed and you run a pack, it's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough.
And I mean, and then I have a kennel in the backyard. So, if it's weather's nice, they'll be outside in the kennel for, long stretches of the time. And then we let them in, let them run around, do their business. Then they can come in the house, hang out for a little bit. And then we just put them right in the kennel. Right, so they get it, and that's their comfort zone. That's where they like to be.
Yeah, running a pack. There's benefits of having two dogs, or a pack. Basically 2 dogs is a pack to them, and you have 2 dogs. There's benefits to that. They keep yourself company and stuff like that. Versus one dog. When we had one dog, it was like, forget about it. It was like screaming his head off when he was by himself. Like, I mean, like you wouldn't. The noises that would come out of him, when he was by himself, was like out of a horror movie. But other than that, but there's also benefits to that too. So there's pluses and minuses to everything. So having 2 is beneficial, but it comes with challenges also.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like right now I've got, 2 Vizslas and I've got, 2 dachshunds, and both of my dachshunds are male. And, one's now 2 and one's now 1. And
are they fixed?
No.
No, yeah, forget about it. You can't keep them in the house loose, I'm sure.
Well, I mean, so as far as the whole, as far as the urine aspect of things, using the belly bands and stuff has worked out really well for us. Yeah. So we don't really have to worry about urine at all anymore.
Oh, that's good.
Well,
I tried that. It didn't work for me.
It didn't.
I'd always get out the top of that belly band. See, it would sneak out the top of that belly band, or they'd rub it off or something.
Well, we use maxi pads in ours too, and we line ours with maxi pads, and we're lucky, I guess. I mean, we get like the small size, and so far it's worked out really well. We've not ever had any leakage or anything.
Okay,
I'm going to go ahead and softly knock on wood.
See,
here.
I mean, I just at this point I don't really feel the need to just leave them in the house, especially when I'm gone. Right. So if you're around them, you're watching them, you can generally keep them from soiling in the house. But when we're not there, they go in their crate.
Yeah. Well, and we keep ours in our crate too.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. We
also
all
don't
our
have
dogs
males. It's a big difference.
Yeah.
He keeps bitches. He has 2 bitches, and I have 2 males. It's a big difference.
Gotcha. Yeah. I mean, we definitely crate train all of our dogs, and anytime we're gone, they're in the crate.
Yeah. So that's good.
Yeah. We don't free range ours either. The only thing I've noticed is sometimes it's just impossible. Like I was telling Casey earlier, basically like our 1, for example, like he'll be outside. Well, I'll stay out there with him for like 10, 15 minutes sometimes before he'll stop being stubborn. And like for 5 to 10 minutes of that 15 minutes, he'll just sit there in the yard. He'll just look up at you. And just stare, and just wait for you to go back. And just wait and go back inside. And he'll want to go back inside first.
Yep.
But finally he realizes, well, we're not going back in, and then he'll finally go.
Oh, it's interesting.
And then, and it's just
but he's
weird.
still young, right? You're still, I mean, think they evolve and they get into a routine.
Yeah.
And they
Well, hopefully he'll eventually realize that he's not going to like always out stubborn me.
yeah.
But something tells me that it's not always going to be the case. But once again, I'm just curious what other people's experiences have been, and so far the general consensus has been pretty consistent. Not always so much as far as the when the best time is to take them home, or to separate them, as puppies or whatever, and send them to their new owners. Although I have heard fairly consistent stuff with that too. I mean, with small breeds in general, I've heard more preferences of waiting a little bit longer, than like your larger breeds that traditionally take them home like closer.
Well,
to
I mean, I could imagine with 8
8
or 9 large breed puppies, you'd probably want them out of the house pretty quick. But
Yeah.
I mean, even having breeding as many litters as I have, like with 3 or 4, they're annoying enough as it is. Little puppies, I could imagine 8 or 9 of these big breeds. I couldn't even imagine, to be honest. So I get why they want to get rid of them, but I don't think it makes a better dog, in my opinion, in my little experience.
Yeah, and I think it, and a couple of other people that I've talked to have also made good points too, that it also largely depends on what the breeder's doing as well, with the puppies, and if they're doing stuff that's similar to how you would do it at home. And stuff
You're raising hounds or even terriers is very different than raising a litter of pointers, right? It's different. But we expose them to rabbit right off, pretty young, as soon as they're eating solids, and they're smelling not live rabbit, but carcasses and pelts, and we do drags with them, and just they have a natural affinity for rabbit, right? So and you'll see them; they're like little piranhas on those pieces of rabbit.
Yeah, I did a drag today with my goshawk, and they were getting very, very close. They couldn't wait today till the goshawk was done. They were getting dangerously close.
Yeah, that's another good lesson for them to learn right there. Anyway,
they know it. They just couldn't help themselves.
It's hilarious.
Yeah. So goshawks and dachshunds. It was an interesting combination. I don't think anybody was really doing that combo at the time, because we thought you were going to fly goshawks. We had just gotten a goshawk, and you always hear you need a pointing dog, or so you could set up the off the fist flush and whatnot, and that wasn't true. We're gonna walk around the field and flush stuff up.
The only information we got was old English books with pointers and goshawks, so upland game and goshawks, and so a lot of that information was passed on to falconers, at least from our perspective, from what we were told.
And because nobody was flying goshawks around at the time, at least where we were.
I remember the first time I even saw a goshawk in person. It was like, it was
way more now than there was.
Yeah, it was like I saw a Yeti. I mean, it was unbelievable.
I think because at the time it was Harris hawks were still the rage still. It was like the tail end of the big peak of, lots of people getting Harris's hawks.
Yeah. Well, and I think that for the most part, after talking to so many different falconers, it's amazing how many things that people find that aren't able to be done, but then they're able to be done.
Correct. Absolutely. I can't agree with you more. Yes. Yeah. And it sounds like I'm double talking. Like, I don't think you need to reinvent the wheel every time. You don't need to force yourself to do it. And, when we were young, we would want to, what if we can do this, and, we can catch geese with our kestrel and, all this silly stuff. But, I don't think you need to do that stuff as I get older. But, at the same time, a lot more things can be done than you were traditionally, than we were told.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I mean, still, even at the time, even squirrel hawking was still not very looked upon.
We still had a lot of that lingering.
A lot of the bias towards squirrel hawking was still there.
Yeah.
And
then Gary Brewer kind of changed that a little bit.
Yeah.
And but even when we were catching squirrels early on, it was still kind of, a little bit, kind of poo-pooed a little bit, like that was beneath. Which makes no sense to me. I don't get it, because it's a much more difficult
because it's not traditional.
But it's not traditional, but
Well, and once again, you find out over time, the more you're, exposed to lots of different types of falconry and falconers, you find out over time the things that are kind of considered to be in some circles like more, taboo or more not or whatever. And eventually it all comes down to the same theme, which is just do whatever makes you happy and whatever you want to do. And don't worry about whatever everybody else is doing.
I agree. As long as you're doing right by the bird.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, before we switch topics, I mean, is there anything else that you guys want to add about dachshunds at all that you think is noteworthy that people should, hear about, take into consideration, or
nothing.
I mean, a dachshund is not there's nothing that's all around dog that's going to be great in every situation, and so, like, for example, we did a couple NAFA meets, and like we wouldn't run a dachshund out there, like it just
We did ring them.
we did, and
We didn't need to.
We didn't need to though. It was almost counterproductive. There's so many rabbits that it was like a circus. They were just running around and like losing their minds, and there was just rabbits everywhere. And the bird would actually sometimes get distracted because he didn't know which one to focus on. So I mean, so for what we do in certain situations, it's a great dog, just like any dog is, and it's not the end all be all, but for certain applications, I think it's a
And
wonderful
I don't think I would say it's for it's people that are new to dachshunds or new to even running any hound dog. Is you have to let them. The biggest thing was you have to let them run, and you have to let them use their nose.
Yes,
and
that's
you
a good
cannot
point.
be over controlling.
Yeah.
If you're coming off of training a bird dog or whatnot, you have to realize this is a very different type of hunting. I think Teddy said, like, sit, stay, come. Field control that way, but at that point, let them use their nose, let them discover things. You could do drags and whatnot.
Yes, if you want just a live beating stick, someone say go here, go there, go there.
Right.
Don't waste your time with a dachshund, or any hound dog, because the benefit of the hound dog is the nose is to trust the dog. And we've given people dogs or seen people in the field or whatever. We've been out with people, and it's just like a control thing, and they don't get the benefit of the dog. Why have the dog then?
Right.
If you're just going to tell it to come here, go there, you're not getting the benefit of that dog's nose.
The falconer will beat a path and expect the dog and the hawk to follow, as opposed to, early on, Teddy told us, like, no, you follow the dog. He's got a nose, you don't. And you work that way. I mean, you direct the hunt into a direction you want. If he starts going off in the wrong direction for, a dangerous direction or whatnot. But generally, as a perspective, is to follow
Trust
the
the
dog's
dog.
lead.
Trust
And
the
then we try to sit back and just orchestrate the hunt, right? Let them work. Make sure the dogs follow. I mean, the bird follows, and trust the dog's nose, and give them time to work. Especially early on, if you're not letting the dog work, you're just going to keep beating, and you're not patient. You don't let the dog develop, and it might be a couple of years, and you're not finding value in your dachshund, is because you're beating ahead of it, or you're beating around it.
Yeah, and
that's all.
Our dogs made us look good for many years.
Well,
many years.
Yeah, and you guys have both made some really good points that definitely applied to this past season for me. With both these dogs, first full season, and that I found out very quickly that I was just trying to do way too much, and I found out that the less that I did, the more productive their progression was, because they innately, like you guys have kind of mentioned and what other people have mentioned, they already kind of have that innate aptitude for what you want to do. The only thing that I found that was helpful, especially with my one older dachshund who wasn't started like, the younger one was doing a couple of extra things here and there to help build his confidence. But much past that, letting them just have increased field time throughout the season and just letting them progress and build that on their own, I think was the best thing that I ended up doing for both of those dogs.
Yep.
Yeah. And they're still young, from what you told me.
Yeah, I mean, I always had a thing, and I don't know if I'm right, but my thing is the third year is what you got. Like by the third season, if you got them out there, even if you got them out there a lot, by that third season, what you got is what. Of course, they can get better, but like, let me put it a different way. They're still progressing a lot within the first, second, and third season.
Yeah.
So you still got time to see what you got. That dog's going to get better and better.
Sure.
Yeah.
Well, it's amazing seeing how much they grow by leaps and bounds just through one season or even half of a season.
Right.
And
we have had dogs. I mean, some of them they've been quiet first 2 seasons. Maybe they don't really open up on scent, and then by the second or third season, they're opening up on scent. They're a little bit more vocal. They're tracking. So it's let's give them time to develop.
Yeah. Well, cool. No, and like I said, thanks for sharing all that stuff. I mean, especially for guys that have done a lot of breeding and had them and been running them for as long as you all have. I mean, it's helpful to get your insights on those things. Sure. But now I guess is a good time to go ahead and kind of switch gears to the traditionally favorite parts of these conversations, and you all have had time to think about it, so I don't want to hear any excuses as far as being able to come up with one of your favorite experiences or stories in the field, whether that's with a particular experience, like I said, hunting experience or dog or bird, whatever the case may be.
Yeah, I mean, we could start with just Goshawks, right? I mean, we've been flying Goshawks now for the majority of our falconry career.
15 years.
Yeah, about 15 years or so, and I think we were, it was a natural gravitation that.
Does it have to be with the dogs or not with the dogs?
Whatever you want. I mean, whatever your favorite hunting experience is. Doesn't dogs necessarily have to be a part of it? Or
I'll share the first time we got a goshawk, and again we hadn't seen goshawks hunted. A friend of ours, Jim Yosin, I think had flown one a few years prior. I read an article or two about it. That's the only thing I knew about it. People in North Jersey flying a goshawk at the time. But
it's hard for people to understand, but the information was very limited, in the early 2000s and stuff.
So anybody we knew that flew a goshawk,
would try to pick their brain. How'd you catch it?
You're getting cold. You're cold calling people on a list, and you say, "Oh, talk to this person." And I say, "All right." We dial them up, like interrupting dinner, like house phone. Hey, there were so and so. We're Falconers. We're new to you. We heard that you used to fly goshawk here.
Back in '85, you had a goshawk. Maybe you could tell us something about it.
But again, it's a trapping one, right? A passage goshawk. I'd never even seen a goshawk, right? So we decided to start looking for a place on a ridge that we can trap one, and we looked on the map. This part looked like a good spot on a nice ridge.
An old timer helped us find a ridge.
Frank Weber said, he said, we'll scout it out together, and we just checked it out, walked it, found an opening that was kind of facing the northwest side of this ridge, and then I saw I came back. It was a northwest wind coming. I think Phil was out of town in West Virginia. It was some alumni weekend, and
November 12th, 2006 or 7.
Yeah. So I was like, let me go check it out. I want to see what it does on a northwest wind. Because we had been trapping on a ridge site in New Jersey, and it was great for catching almost everything but goshawks. I mean,
Bill Miller had found that spot and showed it to us, and it was great for red tails and stuff like that. But it was a secondary ridge, and not. I mean, there was a lot of things caught up there, but it was
lots of things. But goshawks were not one of them.
It wasn't a main ridge.
I mean, we'd caught at that point probably hundreds of birds. Had never seen the goshawk, and. So anyway, we said we're going to try one off of, the more northerly ridge, a more well-defined main ridge where the Appalachian Trail runs through from Pennsylvania across the north part of New Jersey into New York. And so we went up, and it was the northwest wind. Phil was out of town. I went up by myself. I think I just called out sick from work or whatever. And I had one mist net. I want to go light, just light gear. I said I'll just bring one mist net, a couple poles, and a little pop-up line. I think 1 or 2 pigeons. And so I went up there. I found a spot. I found an old snag off to the distance. I ran a line from that to my pop-up line, and I put a mist net. Basically coming, across the direction. One mist net across the direction that I thought they'd be coming. And I just sat in there, and things were happening. I saw birds moving by. It was a lot of eagles. It was an eagle day, bald eagles, some golden eagles.
That's a very typical for this area in
November,
mid-November. A lot of eagles.
So it was a good eagle day. I think a Sharpie flew by, a red tail came in.
It was stars of snow, you said, right?
Yeah, it was a red tail came in. We had some nice snow flurries coming in. I flushed it off the pigeon. And then I think I caught the one just to test out the setup. It did get caught in the net, and I caught one red tail, let it go. And then I would say, about an hour in or so, this bird comes right down. It pops up off to my right, and now the mist net's straight out in front of me. The mist net pole is like right in front of my net, and it goes straight out towards the snag where I tied the line to. And I'm flapping the pigeon. This bird comes between the mist net and me and turns broadside, right? And I could see it was just this big accipiter. I'm like, that's a goshawk. Holy shit. I mean, it went right around and it grabs the pigeon. And I'm like, oh my God. I'm like, that's a guy. I grabbed the pigeon. As soon as it grabbed the pigeon, a red tail comes in behind it and bumps it off the pigeon, and it starts going down range, down the ridge. And I'm like, oh man, I just saw a goshawk. I thought that was awesome. But then I yelled at the at the red tail that's on the pigeon. I flushed it off, and the goshawk looks over its shoulder, turns back around, and lands in the snag that's off in front of me. And it's got its back to me, and I'm like, oh my God, there's a goshawk right here. And it's like, again, I've never seen one, and until now, and now it's on a snag right in front of me.
I mean, keep in mind, we've been searching for years and years at this point for nests. I mean,
yeah, we were doing anything to get a goshawk.
We knew we wanted to fly goshawks before we started, and so this is, theoretically, I mean, this is 2006 or 7. I forget exactly.
About 3 years of looking.
But since '96, we learned about falconry. So I mean, maybe even earlier than that.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's a long time of dreaming of this moment, and we've, other than a couple we saw at a meet, we've never seen a goshawk.
Yeah. So anyway, it's got its back to me, and it's a passage bird. I knew that, and but it's not. I'm like, it's not going to come in. So I'm sitting there hiding behind the pop up line, and I'm trying to work this pigeon. Now, if the bird just came in right at me, it would just come right into the pigeon. It would miss the mist net, right? Because I only had one mist net. It wasn't set up in a V or a U. It was just one net, and it would come in straight in and just grab the pigeon. I had dreams of trying to sneak out and trying to scare it into the net or whatnot. But anyway, nothing's happening. It was just looking back. Was it turned to me all of a sudden, and I'm like shaking in there. I'm looking through the net. I'm hoping it doesn't see me. And but it was quite a distance off, and all of a sudden, after I don't know how long, it felt like an eternity, it did turn around and it just dropped off that snag, and it starts coming in, and it's just gliding right in, pumping, gliding right in towards the pigeon. If it comes straight in, it's going to miss the mist net, so it's whatever. But anyway, at least it was coming in, and I'm like, it's coming in. At the last minute, it tried to it decided to sideswipe the bird, right? Instead of coming straight in on it, it banked off to its left and then hooked right into the net. And I was like, what? I jumped out of that pop-up line. I'm tripping. I'm down the hill. Like it's a rocky, ridge top. And, I bend over my mist net poles. I'm fumbling. The thing is, cacking and sliding in the mist net pocket, like down the edge. I have visions of it getting out, and I basically tackled the thing. And, it was chittering and whatnot. I socked it up. I put the hood on it. I taped it up, and I couldn't take it, and I packed up 10 minutes later, and I went down the hill, and we had our first goshawk. It was a passage male goshawk.
Male goshawk.
And it went to Phil.
And it went to me.
It went to Phil, but
we both flew it together.
Yeah, we both flew it together. The first thing we ever caught was with that passage male. I caught a rabbit.
We caught a couple of rabbits first. Goshawk, we see it fly first. We caught some rabbits with it before we eventually lost it. But we did keep it for a few months, and we definitely caught some rabbits with it. And but we didn't know what we were doing. And
spent a lot of time with Mark Fanning on the call up in Maine, because he had flown a lot of experience with goshawks, even passage goshawks.
And so but it was our start, and I mean, it wasn't great, but we to catch something with a passage tiercel, that not knowing what the heck you were doing, we
had some great flights with that bird.
Yeah, our passage birds that we take now are doing much better than we did with that bird, but they, we had some great flights with that bird and some great times. We had it for about 3 months.
And we learned how to do telemetry chases.
Yeah, we learned telemetry very well.
Yeah, that's an integral part of flying those passage goshawks.
Yeah, I bet.
And so we've flown a number of passage goshawks since then, and that's That's the primary bird we like to fly,
Yeah, that's
but we have some imprints now.
And we flew them with dachshunds, and they all flew with dachshunds, and they
Yeah.
and they all do well.
I've always heard from many people that are able to fly them in places where the climate is amicable, I should say, to flying passage goshawks and stuff, that they tame down real well, and they're they end up being sweetheart of birds to fly later on and stuff.
Yeah, when you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
I mean, we didn't, but we do now a little bit.
Yeah.
But I'll be honest with you, there are some that are just not suited for falconry.
I think there's
not every passage goshawk, if you get one, you're going to assume is going to be. I mean,
I think the number that I initially thought, percentage wise, I can't put a finger on it, but the initial number that I thought that were not suited for falconry is a lot less than I had originally, 15 years ago, would think. I think the percentage is a lot less. But
and they are susceptible to asper. I mean, we've had
that's
why
that's why I mentioned the climate being more amicable, because a lot of the guys that you see that are able to successfully fly passage goshawks, or at least this is what I've heard in passing, are guys that live in colder climates and stuff that are able to,
I don't know. I mean, I would say it was like every. For a while, it was like every third goshawk.
Yeah, but I think that had a lot to do more with us than it did the bird. I mean, I think that was our training methods, because the ones I've trained since
3 weeks. 3 weeks in, all of a sudden you're going. They're coming to the Korean. They're coming to the fist on the Koreans. They stop coming to the fist on the Koreans as they stop progressing, and then in a day and a half they're dead.
That was because we introduced fear too early on with the birds, and whatever. I don't want to go into that, but that's a whole nother topic. But I mean, I think the way I've trained the more recent birds, they've been way more successful than the way I used to train them when I first didn't know anything. And I mean, a lot of this stuff, like I always say, a lot of this stuff has been figured out years and years ago, and it's nothing new. I'm not reinventing the wheel. I'm not discovering anything on my own. It's just coming to the realization that after training so many of them that, what we're doing some of the stuff that we were doing was causing this stress on the birds. Gotcha.
Well, is there any other interesting moments or experiences that you wanna go into at all, or
yeah, we want to talk about goshawks. I mean,
goshawks are birds in general. I mean.
Yeah. How about the time when we were so all of our duck hawking slips generally are drainages behind buildings, behind schools, office buildings, any kind of industrial
sludge.
Yeah, right.
Jersey.
So
waste.
This is in town, right? And I had I think Casey was with me, my cousin Matt, and this falconer, Frank Weber, who was essentially a retired falconer at this point, but joined us many days in the field. And we had this nice set of ducks set up, mallards pinned down, and Phil had his bird, his goss, and the other guys were up on the crossroad where there's like a little bridge, pedestrian bridge, or actually a bridge. They could see the slip. And it was probably in the low 20s at the time. And I said, all right, Phil, you're going to go, you're hiding on the bank. I'm going to go around you. And there's a big, large retaining wall, probably, 8-10 feet high. So I can get up to the edge of that retaining wall. And then the ducks are going to be like 8 or 10 feet below me in the creek. And I'm going to surprise them. It's, so everyone's watching from the end. Phil's hiding on the bank.
Now you got to remember, these ducks in suburbia we have the problem with them not getting up. It's not like wild ducks where, it's the opposite. They don't get up because they're just not scared.
Yeah, in the winter, the local ducks will congregate and
they don't want to get up. They don't want to flush,
especially if they know there's a hawk. Yeah, you'll get groups of migrants that move in. You can kind of see them, but once they set up resident flocks in a certain area, sometimes they're hard to get up. So we really want to make sure these birds get up, because if they don't get up, then they're just going to dive back out in the water. So. And they're sketchy. Every time they would see us, they would blow out, but they would fly low in the water, right?
Yeah.
So that group especially, it would fly low and bail back in the water. So I wanted to really surprise them. So I start approaching and I start running towards that retaining wall, right? And I'm yelling, ha, 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 ha. And my foot hits a root. and I end up stumbling, and I have to like basically hurl over the top of this retaining wall, and I jump right into the stream, like 8-10 foot down below, and I land in the middle of the flock of ducks. They're looking at me, and I'm yelling and screaming, and then they all take off. It was hilarious, and I was frozen, but
And
it's
it
like.
was a little scary because there's a lot of
And
big
then
rocks down there
all
too.
it was is, and there's a group of the guys that were watching us. They didn't hear like what was going on, and they just see a guy running and screaming, jumping over a wall into the water.
I run towards
to
the sled.
flush
I
out
run
ducks.
with my goshawk, and I don't hear anything. All of a sudden, I don't see any ducks, and all I hear is. And I'm like, what the heck? I look over, I see Paul on his hands and knees in the
The ducks. I mean, they're literally by my head. I surprised them so much. I was in the water with them before they flushed.
It's hilarious.
Oh my god!
Yeah, it seems like pretty much everybody that's done any degree of like urban hawking for ducks or whatever always has at least a handful of just utter calamity stories that is, this shit just goes wrong,
Yeah, like Casey when he's trying to trade off the duck for us. Phil took a swim after this duck had. I mean, his goss had a really nice flight. Grabbed the duck, and at this point, we don't help each other unless. We just watch and just laugh and
mock.
fingers.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
So Phil's bird took this but it was the duck. It was a steep bank and had pulled the bird back in the water, and it was going underneath an overpass or not even a pedestrian bridge.
I reach out for the duck, and it just gets too far away, and I go. My face goes under, and I get
so
a
now
nice,
he's literally swimming.
nice mouth of Jersey scum water, and then I pull the bird in, and I throw it on shore, and it's cold out, of course, and I'm like, Casey, don't trade that bird, because I knew my bird would jump off the carcass real quick.
It wasn't. Yeah, she's like, yeah, it was.
I'm like, don't lose that, and he's like, shroom, and the duck. The bird jumps off, he trades it off, and the other live duck just goes jumping back into the creek, swimming away.
You're like, Casey, don't know it wasn't dead yet.
It wasn't, yeah. So,
yeah, I got a few I could tell you.
We're trying to, yeah. So anyway,
but I've seen very similar circumstances. Let's just put it that way. That's hilarious.
But another great one was we were at the NAFME in Amarillo, and Paul had a Passage Merlin, and we had seen some great flights with it. And this is only 3 or 4 years into our falconry, so we hadn't seen much of this stuff, and we were always, I don't know why, but I think falconers should be like this. We didn't want to lose any birds. Like it was if you lose a bird, you find it. You do everything you can to find that bird. So we were flying this Passage Merlin, and it's just the most beautiful flights we've ever seen down in Amarillo. And again, this was only like
near a feedlot,
year 4 or something like that. Yeah, and this thing ends up catching something, and I don't know if it carried it or
no,
what.
this was the second time in that same area, and it rang up with a bunch of grackles or starlings.
Okay, so cowbirds, starlings, whatever, rang up, it flew out of sight. We chase it down all day. It finally catches a little something at the end of the evening, goes out to roost. We're sitting there in the headlights of the car trying to call it down. It's swooping the lure, blah, 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 blah. Goes up and roosts for the night. We come back in the morning, comes in the headlights, blah, 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 and then starts hunting again.
And catches something else.
So
it's self-hunting.
Some nice random falconer at the NAFME in Amarillo ends up, helping us giving them the coordinate, what is it, the frequency for the transmitter, and ends up helping us
Getting
at the end of
signal.
the day, finding this, getting a signal for this bird. So we go and find it, and Paul.
I think this is like the second day or the third.
Yeah, it's like the second day.
I think it's like the third. Yeah, that might be the
It wasn't-
2 nights out, or I'm not
I think
sure.
it was out one night.
One
and
night
this
and
was the
it's
next
so
day.
two days and 1 night so far.
Yeah, yep. And so he tracks it down to a feedlot, and if anybody's been to Kansas, was it Dodge City or was it Amarillo?
It was a Garden City, Kansas.
Sorry, it was Garden City,
2004. Yeah.
Yeah. So, and these feedlots out in Kansas are, just huge and not pretty.
And you can smell them from the meat hotel.
I mean,
Oh, yeah.
So we track it down, or this guy, this nice falconer, I don't remember who he was, ends up finding this frequency, tracks this Merlin down to this feedlot.
But every time we'd see it, it would bump off and start chasing starlings.
Yeah, we
again.
chase something else instead.
Every time we get close to it, it's off chasing another flock of starlings.
So we find it in this feedlot, and then you could tell.
Oh my gosh! Yeah, well, it finally landed on one of the on the bars in the feedlot, and I bring out a lot.
There's hundreds of starlings in these feedlots. I mean, hundreds.
And
but there's also hundreds of cattle and real thick slop.
Yeah, I mean it's liquid manure. That's, I would say, probably halfway up towards your knee. And but anyway, so it's on the fence, and it goes right down the alley of one of the in the feedlot, and it just goes into, the starlings go up like crazy. And then the signal's still down there. I'm like, oh, okay, so maybe maybe he caught something. Maybe I'll try to make it on there. So I go down the alley, and it's down there. It's right on near the bottom, underneath the fence, and it had a starling. But as I started approaching it, what happened was it got caught up in the manure. So I've been chasing this bird for 2 days and a night, and I tried live sparrows, live starlings on a string to get this bird to come down. It would not come down to me. It would just self-hunt, caught game in front of me, and keep eating them up in the trees. And now I stayed with it. We found the signal, like as Phil just said, and it had the starling, but it was caught up in the manure. And it's flopping. So I'm running down there.
Liquid slop all
and
over its wings.
It's pulled itself inside where there was, I don't know how many cows in there, and again, like almost knee deep in liquid manure. I dive between the bars, and I didn't want the cows to trample it. It's literally coated liquid manure. I mean, in its eyes, its mouth. The starling is loose. I grab the starling, I throw it in my pot. I dive in, I slide in there. I just wanted to get this bird. It was like a baseball slide, and I got covered. I mean, covered. I mean, I could still smell it, and it's head to toe, my chest, my legs, liquid manure. It's the worst. I was gagging. I was heaving. The smell and the bird. I don't know what's going to happen to the bird. It was in its mouth, its eyes, everything. It was completely coated. I took off my clothes. I got down
took
in
out his
underwear.
clothes. We put it into this poor rental car
in the back,
and we drive to the hotel.
My head was out the window, and I'm holding the bird.
I'm driving him back to the rental, and it was so bad.
You could not smell. The smell was so bad.
I'm still paying for that rental car.
Yes, and I took it in the shower with me, and
the poor went in the shower. We threw it in we threw the clothes in the garbage,
and we got that bird back, man. We got that bird back, and kept had a good hawking season the rest of it.
But just sneak him up to the back stairs of the hotel in his boxers.
We washed our clothes like 3 or 4 times. It still stunk the rest of the meat. It was terrible, but
things we do, man.
Yeah. I mean, you didn't want to lose that bird. I got that bird back, and
sounds like it was totally worth it.
Yeah, good God, man,
it was crazy.
Yeah,
and there's certain things that happen in falconry. Those are days you never forget.
Oh yeah.
Finding the first goshawk nest we ever found, that was something we never forgot.
Yeah.
Pulling our first goshawk nest, goshawk chick that turned out to be a red-shouldered hawk. That was a good one.
That
was a great one. Yeah. Yeah, we're new guys looking. We heard there was someone spotted a goshawk near.
I know that's happened more than people want to admit. I don't care. I'll admit it.
Yeah. We I guess we're a couple years into falconry. We're like, that's it. We're gonna find a goshawk nest. We searched a couple years. Then somebody said they saw a goshawk. They swore it looked like a goshawk. And we went to go check out the spot. We found the nest. There was mutes around it. We saw a hawk flying through the woods. It looked like a goshawk, whatever. We ran up that tree, pulled that bird. I'm like, hey, we got a goshawk, right? So tell Teddy. Really? I bring it over. Teddy's there. Carl's there at his house. He's like,
we had raised a number of imprints at that point.
We had raised a couple Cooper's Hawks.
Cooper's Hawks, Sharpies also.
Yeah. And now we're like, okay.
We're like,
we
thought we raised a goshawk, but like, it was a little past the time that we thought this bird should have been, feathered and fledged and stuff
a little
like
bit more
that.
aggressive, and it had that stupid little face that you notice now, but at the time we didn't recognize the little fluffy looking rounded
with this
head.
Accipiter here, it's like it's taking a long time.
But we brought it to Teddy's house, and Carl was like, "That's not a goshawk." As soon as he saw it, wait a second. Yeah, maybe it's not. It was still wasn't quite feathered. At the time, but So sure enough, our first goshawk was a red-shouldered hawk, and then the next year we did actually find a nest.
Goshawk.
Or was that the year that we found the nest and it failed? And then
it was the next year.
Yeah, I think Casey was with Phil. We'd scouted this spot, and again, another falconer was no longer with us.
Yeah, I mean, Casey was with me. We had been searching for nests for years and years and years, and we had Anyway, I took Casey for whatever reason, and
We wanted to check that spot because
we had seen mutes or something like that, something to tip us off in that spot. And I'll never forget, because I had been searching.
Casey's never looked for a nest with us. It was the first time.
Yeah, first time Casey's gone out with us. I don't know how old he was. How old were you in 2007? I don't know.
6 or 7, was it?
Yeah, 15, 16, something, whatever. Anyway, I walked into this section and I seen a bird come through the woods. Now, I don't have the experience, but I've been at that point through God knows how many hours of woods looking for a bird. And I mean, my heart just about stopped, and it came through the woods, and then we just kept going. It flew over me from east to west, and I flew over my head and just kept going. And I just my heart just about stopped. And then we kept walking and walking. And then all of a sudden, sure enough, cack, 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 cack. And then I'm I didn't know whether to go blind or what, but I just kept going. And then we sure enough found the nest. I seen it, I hear cack, 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 cack. And I just turned around and ran straight out of that woods, jumping as high as I could in the air. And just it had been I mean, we had been looking for 4 years, but we've been dreaming about that moment for Goshawks for God knows how many years. And, so that was a very big.
So
moment.
I didn't go with Phil that day
me,
looking,
so.
and I'd been every weekends from basically end of March after we've done hawking, we'd start looking almost every weekend from March through April and to June and May and
for years and years. And here I am, Casey, his first time going searching for nests.
He goes into the woods and he sees a female cacking at him. So that was pretty cool. So, I climbed the nest the first time, and I saw just 3 eggs. We came the week later.
So we came back a week later and had to climb it again, and that was that.
Yeah.
Well, great stuff. I mean, that's lots of good stuff, and I appreciate you all sharing everything. Like I said, I figured you guys would have some pretty unique experiences, being the tandem that you guys have been for so long, but.
Not to drive you, one of the best compliments we ever got was a friend of ours. We'd call us the modern day Craighead brothers, and that was I used to love when he would say that. That's a very big compliment.
Yeah, that was. I mean,
So that was. I mean, I wouldn't say we're that by any means, but that's a stretch.
But it is a unique experience to share with my brother.
It was kind of interesting to have brothers that would share the same passion.
Yeah, no, I mean it sounds like it, and I think you guys were very fortunate to not only get along as well as you apparently have throughout the years, but also share a common interest and be able to kind of feed off each other in that regard and learn from each other. And
I mean, one inherently is always better than the other.
Yeah, well, of course. Yeah,
that's obvious.
And everybody can determine who that is.
Yeah, everybody knows who that is.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, we'll just leave that one alone.
In all honesty, it's the fact that we actually do complement each other. The things that he's good at are things that I'm not good at, and vice versa. So that really makes us. We wouldn't have been successful otherwise. We couldn't. I mean, we got full-time jobs. We got families.
He's got 4 kids. I got 5 kids. I mean, we can't just physically that he lives next door. Just going away on vacation, things like that is just not.
We're just
feasible.
training.
Training. If I can't get home, feed my bird, train my bird, blah 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 blah. That kind of stuff.
Yeah,
it's
so we know that not everybody has that luxury, and
not very many at all.
Yeah, and we set ourselves up to do that, but it is also a nice convenience. And Casey was always close by too, also for that, and there's always someone that we can rely on too. And Paul's other apprentice, Harold, is the same way, very reliable, and now lives close and is helpful.
Awesome. Well, like I said, I mean, I'm stoked for you all that you've had those resources and have had as illustrious and successful of a career as you all have had so far.
We're still learning and trying, and always trying to get better. So that's
for sure. Yeah. Well, go ahead and let's go ahead and wrap this up here shortly. But I want to go ahead and get you all's best piece of advice that you can leave for people, and then we can call this good.
Is this general falconry advice, or is this
life advice?
Well, I'm pretty sure nobody's going to want to take any life advice from y'all.
Well, listen, I always say, stay humble in what you think because these birds will always teach you more, and that's it. Whatever you want to do, just do it with a passion, and That's it. I mean, it's pretty simple.
Yeah, along those lines that my brother's saying, same thing, same idea. It's just, I think that people's it just is a general thing for learning in general. I think people's egos get in the way of learning, and I think that they're either afraid to make mistakes, afraid to ask questions, think that I should have been in this long enough, and blah blah blah. And I think not to go long winded here, just people's ego. Or stop them from progressing in whatever.
Phil's always asking questions. Everybody he meets, I know.
Yeah,
he's a little bit more curious than me on certain things.
Yeah, I don't care if you flew one Goshawk. I want to know what you did with it. I don't
exactly.
care. Maybe you can teach me something. I don't care that I've been doing this forever, and and that's not to say that I'm going to listen to you, but I want to at least hear what you have to say. And I just think that that's so. There's. Not afraid to admit my mistakes, and you letting your ego get in and asking people questions and blah blah blah. I think that's what stops a lot of people.
Well, yeah, the fear of admitting you did something wrong.
There's a saying I like.
If you screw up, just do it. Just come up and we'll make it right. Especially to my apprentices, I tell them that.
I have I like on the saying I like to talk when I would meet people. It'd be like. It'd be this first or second or third year of the person you meet is in falconry. And I'm like, oh, there they are, the master apprentice. You know what I mean? They flew one red tail. They got it all figured out. They're at the meets. They're at the picnic telling everybody how to fly a bird and how you did it and what you did wrong and what you didn't do wrong about the master apprentice, And it's like, it doesn't matter whatever year you are, you're never the master. And I've listened to a lot of your podcasts and a lot of those, the old timers and those masters that you've listened to, none of them have that attitude. None of them have that, I know everything attitude, and that just tells you what you need to know right there.
Well, yeah, and if you haven't been humbled yet, it's coming at some point.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's always something to learn. There's always more to learn. You never figure it out. Yeah,
sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
Those that push themselves, the ones that are out there doing it the most, will also suffer the most failures.
Yeah. Well, and I think that anybody that's worth their salt in doing this, or really any endeavor that's worthwhile, I think would be sad to ever find the day that they stop learning something new.
There you go.
Exactly. Because otherwise, what the hell's the point in continuing to do it then?
And again, these failures are not quite failures, but they're accidents. Accidents happen to the ones that are active the most, the ones that are hawking the most, the ones that are running their dogs the most, are the ones that are going to have the most unfortunate things that happen to them too. So don't let that hold you back, but just, it's going to happen.
Yeah. Well, good stuff, guys.
I appreciate talking to you. It was a great conversation, and I enjoyed hearing about, we didn't get to talk about it here on the podcast, but earlier you shared some of your experiences with your Harris's hawks and your dogs, and I enjoyed that, as well. So thank you.
We'll talk more about that later.
He doesn't appreciate hearing about Harris hawks. Don't let him kid you.
Well, any true accipiter guy wouldn't be caught dead with a Harris hawk.
Listen, I've flown them.
Yeah.
I flew 2 of them.
Yeah.
After I caught the second teddy bear off the porch of a neighbor's house, and a couple of steak trimmings behind the restaurant.
Yeah, don't forget those chicken bones out of the dumpster.
Chicken wings, dead
Fairly
starlings.
True story.
I was getting ready to say you're leaving out like the reddish corn cobs that are left in like the cornfields and stuff.
I had this one Harris hawk. It would fly across any field, a highway, whatever, to find a dumpster. And we'd be hawking. We got 3 rogs out. I got 5 guys in the field. We're chasing rabbits. It gets up in a tree and it goes beelines across like 6 lanes of highway, across like 100-yard field. And like, where's it going? It's going right to a freaking green dumpster behind there because it had caught some steak trimmings behind the restaurant one time. Chicken bones, dead starlings, everything behind the dumpster.
True story.
I could not hawk that thing. And where I live, there's dumpsters everywhere. So I ended up transferring that bird out to somebody. I don't know what happened to it. I don't want to know what happened to it. But
all right. Well, on that note, I'm cutting your ass off. So it's all. But no, man, this has been a fun conversation, and like I said, it's always great getting new perspectives, and I appreciate you all sharing yours as brothers in this sport. And yeah, man, we can go ahead and call this good, and I'm sure the rest of the week's going to be a lot of fun. It's too bad that some people have other obligations that they feel like they need to attend to and things, and not going to be able to join in and stuff.
Yeah,
but no, man, it's been great, and thank you all so much for being willing to share and for doing this.
Stay here.
Oh yeah, and thank you again so much for the hospitality. It's without guys like yourself, this stuff wouldn't be possible. So
thank you. Thanks, John.
Yep.